Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back in the world on this first day of February, and it is still as snowy as ever, and I keep having to clear this path basically every 12 hours or so. And I have been hard at work at here. Well, actually, our windmill has been hard at work at here, grinding up some limestone for us into lime, and I have been storing it up here in preparation for some more leather working over here, but also, ooh, hello, also for today's episode, which I think will begin by getting out our leather, which is a great start to the episode. But I've also been busy putting together some tools we're going to need for today, and that is a whole bunch of shovels. That's right, bismuth bronze shovels with collectively over, 3,000 durability. I think that should be good for today, because today I'm going to dig myself a hole. And a lot of folks say that I'm very good at that, so perfect. Now, why are we digging holes, Corazar? I thought this was Vintage Story, not Diggy Diggy Hole Story. Well, today we are going to start laying the foundations for our future forever home that will not have drifters in it. I hear you wherever you are. Groan, groan. And I decided, well, two things. One is the actual style we're going to go for, as well as the location. And I know I've been sort of a bit coy about what style we're going for, because I really couldn't bring it out until we had some kind of pickaxes so much. But we are going to be hobbits. That's right. We are little hobbits, little tall hobbits. You don't know how tall I am. I could be really short. And so we are going to build ourselves a little hobbit hole. And the word little is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, so yeah. We'll be making a large hobbit hole, but we're small, so it'll still be small, right? Right. And I was doing some scouring of the map and a little bit of touring around while our shovel heads were cooling, and I thought that this is probably the perfect place to start our new home. Of course, I assume I'm going to dig down here like one block and find a giant cave, but whatever. But the reason is that we want our house to be somewhat underground. Not really underground like a dwarf or maybe a gnome, but just sort of barely under the flesh of the earth, aka the dirt. So we don't want to dig down too far, and if we started by possibly even filling in this bit here, this could be the altitude at which we enter into our home. Because I kind of want to build up this area a little bit with some more dirt. And this is ice under here, isn't there? Ah, it is a lake. But yeah, so I was thinking we could build a little hobbit hole right over here, and that will put us just in, well, with a straight shot to our friend over there and our friends in the barn, and not too far from our old home, or our current home, and also not very far from our drifter pit. And so yes, I think this is going to be where we put down some roots. Now, I've been doing some design work on a little house on a piece of paper, the old-fashioned way, and I've come up with an approximate size that I think we'll need to have cleared out and dug out here before we begin. Now, the way I want to go about this is that I want to sort of do a room at a time. Unlike with Lupine Ridge in the first season, I don't want to build the entire house and then have to fill the rooms in individually. I think I want to start with, like, mostly the rooms, and then do maybe, like, 3 of the rooms that we need to live in, and get them done up front. I'm thinking the kitchen, the cellar, and the storage, and we can sleep wherever we can put our bed down. And maybe we'll even do, like, the living room or foyer or, like, main attraction room as we go in. I don't want the kitchen to be the first thing that we see when we go in. But yeah, so we're going to sort of take this room by room rather than all at once, and then we'll see how it turns out. And the idea is that we're going to have a little house underground, well, partly underground. We'll enter, say, from here, just pretend, and we'll have a roof that's mostly dirt. Now, the ceilings inside won't be dirt. They'll be wood or stone or whatever, but the roof on top will be dirt, and we can edge it with some sod roofing, which is kind of like a, here we go, sod roofing. It is a greenery roof that I believe does change color in winter, or according with the weather. So that should look pretty good, and it should match with what the house looks like in each season. And that won't be the only type of roof, but I think that that'll be the sort of overarching roof. I want to experiment with some new designs and some new styles and try out some new things and break things and fix them, and yeah. And the more I look at this whole area, the more I'm considering maybe actually digging out an extra layer so that our entrance is down here. Yes, I'm thinking so, because I want to have 2 large steps up. I don't want to have, like, a berm out here where we come up to the top of our yard and step down. So yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go and rest and make it morning, and then I'm going to get out there with our shovels, and I'm going to dig us a bit of a starting area, get our foundation going on. And then today we're not going to build any of the rooms. Today is going to be strictly getting the foundations in, and then laying out the rooms in the house and talking about why we're going to put them where we are, as well as some of the design considerations I made as far as thematics and also for game design, i.e. working within the systems of Vintage Story itself. I'll see you all in the morning. Alright folks, it is morning, or close enough I suppose, and before we head out, the first thing we want to do is we want to actually get our backpacks going on, because we now have 3/4 of a stack of leather. So it is time for us to go ahead and make us 4 backpacks. Oop, there we go. Like I said. There we go. And we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, leaving us with 17 leather. And these will finally give us the most inventory storage we can possibly have in the game. We'll fill out these 4 slots. So let's go ahead and get this all in. And there we go. We now have our full backpack size. We can tuck our old linen sacks away. And these, we can actually go ahead and sell them to certain traders later. I think the treasure hunter and possibly the survival goods trader will take these off our hands for just a couple gears, but it's something. Otherwise, they just sort of take up extra space. So with this about to finish and all of our inventory ready to roll, I say let's go ahead and get started on some of this digging out here. I don't see any rifts. Now I am looking at digging out basically about a 40 by 40 area here, and that should give us enough room to build our house, have a little bit of a yard. There's that rift, still there apparently. So we'll have the house, get a bit of a yard, and then we'll have a gradual slope up to the level of the landscape around. Now, when you are picking a house location, as I think I mentioned way back when we picked our location here, you do want to pay attention to your temporal stability right here. Now, certain mods will actually tell you up here what your temporal stability is for a given area, and if it's negative, then you know you don't want to stay there. But you can also tell just by watching your gear. If your gear is spinning to the right, or clockwise, or it's kind of rocking back and forth because it's 100%, then you know that it is temporally stable. If it's going counterclockwise or left, you know it's going to be unstable, and you don't want to stay there because you'll go crazy and die. As you dig deeper into the earth, your temporal stability has a tendency to go down. So it is possible to have like a basement, even just a few blocks below the surface, where it's unstable. So I think it's kind of worth it to take a moment here and just dig down as far as the dirt will let us go. As you can see, we are still just barely stable here, so I think we'll be fine. I'm going to go ahead and probably just fill this back in for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and mark an approximate center. Let's sort of center it on our buddy over there. And we will do that as our center, which means I'm going to come out a few blocks, actually 20 blocks-ish in all directions, and get started. Without further ado, let's get to it. While I'm working, let's have a bit of a chat. It's been a while since we had one other than a 20 questions segment, and I think we have much to talk about. First off, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to you, to all of you watching this right now, and in the future. As of this recording, we just hit 5,000 subscribers on the channel. I literally could not do this without all of you, so thank you so much for being part of this little community. It's a big milestone and a very surreal feeling. The channel is now 5 times larger than it was at this time last year. We hit 1,000 subscribers on June 22nd, 2022. To be sitting at 5,000 is amazing and thrilling, so thank you again to all of you for being part of this channel. The second thing is something you've probably already noticed, but my voice probably sounds a bit louder than it has been. A few people mentioned that the background music was sometimes drowning out my voice, so I spent some time fiddling with settings and eventually settled on a normalization filter added during editing. It's not quite as good as getting my audio levels sorted out during recording, but my recording setup and software aren't quite letting me get my voice levels to be as consistent as I'd like, even with a relatively aggressive compressor in OBS. So, I hope I'm not blowing out anyone's eardrums, but it sounds good to me both with and without headphones. Please let me know how things sound, and whether you think my voice is still too soft, or is too loud compared to the background music and game sounds. Lastly, on a smaller note, in the previous episode, we found some really cool ruins up on the surface through that translocator, and I mused about exploring them in this episode. However, I think we're going to put off further exploration for a couple reasons. One, because it would be nice to explore when it's not quite so snowy out, and two, because we need a larger, cozier home to come back to. Anyway, let's get back to shoveling dirt. We'll show Mog Swamp how it's really done. Alright folks, we didn't quite manage to get all that done in one day, but as you can see we have a temporal storm approaching, and it is getting toward nightfall. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to prepare for tonight's temporal storm. I don't think we'll see Dave because it is snowing, but if we do, I'll bring y'all back to see him. Otherwise, I will see all of you in the morning when we are ready to continue work on our little dugout here, our hobbit-hole. Okay everyone, we are back. Dave did indeed not make an appearance, and it was a bit of a nothing burger temporal storm. We got plenty of drifters, but there's a bug that will be fixed in the next version of the game, 1.18.6, that's actually been an issue since Tyron introduced the creature weight, and that is that drifters are affected by creature weight, even though they don't really eat, real food. And so, while I killed a double-headed drifter, well actually, I got him down to 1 hit point, and then a deep drifter killed it. I got exactly 1 rusty gear from that drifter. We did get a temporal gear from a corrupt drifter, and then 6 pieces of flax fiber. But this is a little bit low because the drifters are all marked as weight low, because it's winter. And that shouldn't be happening, and Tyron has noticed that, and we'll be fixing that in version 1.18.6, but for now, we're getting kind of the short end of the stick here. Anyway, I'm going to put these things away where they belong, and then I'm going to go ahead and just get the rest of this digging done, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do as far as the house design goes. So I'll see all of you in just a little bit when we are on the other side of that. That is what I would have said, except that we now have some chicks over here that I noticed. I wanted to come and make sure our animals were fed, and it looks like we now have, I think, 4 baby chicks. They're kind of hard to count because they're all scrambling around. Maybe it's 5, I can't tell. We also have an infertile egg on the ground. This is not fertilized. We also have 2 more nests full of eggs, and I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the eggs out of here. And we'll leave this one because I don't need a million new chicks at the moment. This should be enough. And with these 3, I think we will round out our set. Now what's going to happen is, if I can get this to mouse over long enough, which I probably can't, on the chick it says generation 1. Come on, little buddy. Okay, well you can't see it. But under its name it says generation 1. And what that means is that that chick is the start of the domestication process. So this is the first generation of domesticated chickens, and that means that it will be slightly meatier, slightly featherier. We'll get more drops from it when we harvest them, well, when they're adults. And the same will be true for the hogs and for the sheep, all of whom are pregnant. Now, as I recall, the chicks take about 5 days to hatch, once they have a broody hen, as long as you keep them well fed. If you forget to feed them, then this process stalls. The hogs and the sheep both take about the same time. I think the hogs are 18 days of gestation, and the sheep are 20. Unless something has changed. I don't think it has. So we really should only have probably a few more days to go waiting on the sheep and the hogs. But I'll come back and check on them here and there. Everyone here is good weight, which is perfect, because once these grow up, once the hogs and the sheep grow up, we'll be able to send their parents off to a retirement home. Yep, that's what we'll do. And that retirement home happens to be inside one of my clay vessels. And that will be great, because we are getting a little low on protein, which is actually why I picked up these eggs. Because eggs are actually a pretty decent source of protein. They're not as filling as, say, raw meat, or I don't think they're even as filling as poultry, which is less filling than raw meat. But it is a good, easy-to-access source of protein. It's very quick and cheap to turn your spare flax into protein that way, and a lot faster than waiting for meat to grow on an animal, because that's how meat grows on an animal, like a tree. Now, I grabbed these other unfertile eggs, or unfertilized eggs, the other day, and I wanted to show you that we can actually make scrambled eggs out of these. I believe we can match these up with some onions to make scrambled eggs and onions. If we had cheese, we could add some cheese to the mix, but we don't. I'm going to go ahead and, I guess we will get a second cooking pot out, because we have a billion of these. And we'll tuck you in there. And if you put your eggs, I believe it's split here. Yep, there we go, scrambled eggs with onion garnish. And you'll see the eggs actually last quite a while. They last about 4 or 5 times as long as meat does in storage. So they're also a nice way to keep things fresh in general. But we can go ahead and get a bit of ASMR going on, and then we'll see how this scrambled egg meal stacks up against other meals. And here we go. We now have some scrambled eggs and onion. I guess we can't really see the nutrition there. So as you can see, the eggs aren't a ton of protein. They're 200 each once they're cooked. And that is compared to, I believe, 480 for red meat and 300 and something for chicken. Cooked poultry is 200 by itself, but in a meal I believe it's like 260 or something. I'll have to check the wiki, but yep, so it's not a super duper filling meal. These are actually kind of small. It would take actually 2 of these to fill us up from an empty bar, but that's okay. And I'm going to put away this one piece of flax I had left over. Boop. Okay, well, I'll see all of you on the other side of the rest of this digging, and we will talk about and get to actually building our house. Alright, let's get out here. And we're going to arm ourselves with some of that dirt we just dug out. And we're going to put some of that dirt right back. Well, kind of. So here is our starting canvas. And I kind of like that the land rises over here, because I was envisioning sort of having a build here where it's kind of tucked against a higher rise in the land a little bit. So maybe we won't have much of a yard on this side, and I might sort of rebuild some of this land up over top our builds here. We'll see how it turns out, though. But let's go and get armed with some of this dirt. I think I will focus on using the low fertility soil at the moment. We're going to make a whole bunch of packed dirt. Okay, that's weird. You can't... Wild. Whatever. Whatever, game, you keep doing you. And we're going to come out here probably, let's see. I want to leave like 7 or so blocks from our front door to where the land starts rising. And I am going to dig out some of this. It will sort of be a gradual slope, not a hard wall. But just for getting the house in, I wanted to get this just dug out here. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, And maybe like on the 8th one here is about where we'll have our door, I think. And I'm not really measuring. I mean, I did sort of line it up with that post there. So you know what? Just to drive everyone crazy, we're going to put this offset by 1 block. And we'll see how it comes out. Who knows? So I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll have a sort of living room, or a foyer right here, really, is what it is. And we're going to do something like this. This will be our foyer slash living room area. About like this. Now, what I am envisioning is while the land's going to come down, I really wanted to have our home sort of set into the ground. And I wanted it to be more than just 1 block, because I kind of have a little bit of a vision for our little foyer here, our little living room. And the more I look at this, the smaller this feels. This might feel a little bit small for our original living room. You know what? I could totally push this back by like 2 blocks. Here I go deviating from my plans already. Yeah, I could push this back by 2 blocks and get a little bit more room in the living room that's not foyer area. Foyer. And what I want to have here is a little entryway where we do have a step up into. So we'll have some stairs here, and we'll be right here. And we'll have like a little walkway around this area here about this height. If I can aim properly, it would really help. And then we'll have like a step down here, and maybe a second step down to here, like so. And then this area down here would be our living room area. And we could even maybe stretch this out a little bit by extending this little walkway just like a block or 2. Something like this. That way we come in, we have like a place to hang our coat or our armor. We have a bit of a view down into our living room. I love these little sort of dual level areas. It's kind of like the breakfast room over on the first season at the end when we were down in the south. And I really liked that design, but I wanted to make one that's a little more roomy, a little bit less cave-like. Now granted, we are going to be living in basically a cave, but we'll get more sun, I hope. Right? Hopefully. I originally was going to have it where our entrance was at ground level, but I realized if I did that, then when we did our bedrooms, if they were 2 blocks deep, then our windows would need to be up here. So all of our windows would be starting at this level. And I wanted to be able to have some view of like the outside in our gardens from the bedroom without having to stand back to look out. So I thought it'd be better to raise this living room area of the house up, and actually the whole house up by 1 block from my original plan. And what we'll do then is we'll just sort of cover parts of it with dirt to bring it sort of into the hobbit-hole style that we're going for. Now with this, we're going to need to have access over to a room over here. I want to have some kind of extra room. I'm not sure what it's going to be just yet. This might be a library. It might be a, if I can say it right, lepidoptery? Is that the word? Dr. Octagonopus? Yes, we're going to have our Dr. Octagonopus over here. And that's going to be, well, now that everything is shifted, it's going to be a little harder to judge, but I could just reline it up. Or maybe even have it actually at this level. Maybe have it be above the ground a little bit more than the rest of the house. Now there's a thought. I could go for that. I'm rethinking things now. Yes, if I follow the original design of that room's plan, it's going to be about this big, which puts the entrance right over here, which isn't too bad, but it does put it right in the middle of the stairs. So I'm wondering if maybe we put that room here, the entrance right here, put this room above ground a little bit more than the rest of the house, and that way we're playing with the height differences and elevation a bit more than with this original design. I think I kind of like that actually, so let's do that. Alright, now the main feature, and probably the first room that we're going to be doing, will be the kitchen. It's going to be right in here. And I want the kitchen to be central because we're going to be here a lot. We'll be cooking a lot of meals, doing a lot of canning, just like we did in the first season and anytime you play Vintage Story, so the kitchen needs to be pretty central. You're always going to come back to it. And also it'll help that since it'll be away from all the windows, it'll be central after all, the kitchen itself may actually function as a cellar, because I am going to keep this within the 7x7x7 room spec. So we're going to do something a bit like this. And something that I didn't really account for with this shifting of things was that I did want to have a connection from the kitchen into the storage room, which I kind of want to put over here. I'm thinking of storage going right in this area here. Something a bit like this. And having a nice big above ground storage room. I kind of learned my lesson in the first season of the guide, where I found myself ending up in the basement at Lupine Ridge a lot. And while it wasn't bad, it was kind of a cave. I mean, I wasn't intending for half the series to take place in the basement, but I'd like to at least have, I don't know, some sunlight while we're working in the storage area this time around. So I think that's what we're going to do. Now over here is going to be a bedroom. I've decided that. And I want the bedroom to be facing the front of the house, or along the front of the house, and be able to look out into our gardens. Let's have a bite of our scrambled eggs. Yeah, not too shabby. A little low in the fruit here, but we have 2 more jars of jam to just spoon into our mouths. But before the bedroom happens, I want to have a bit of a hallway, because I was going to have a bunch of connections off the kitchen, but I ended up, while doing some planning, I realized that I was going to have about 4 squares or 4 blocks of space to stand to do kitchen stuff without getting in the way of any of the thoroughfares. So we're going to offset that thoroughfare and slap a hallway in right in here. So hallway goes down basically this way. We'll have our bedroom off of here, and the hallway goes down the rest of the way in this direction. And then right off of here in the hallway, we're going to have the other room. As in other room that is not library or butterfly room, lepidopticopter. I haven't decided which one's going to go where yet. It's going to depend on just how much space each of those requires. I think the butterflies might need a larger room if we're going to get into that. So this might end up being a bit bigger than that one over there, and we'll have room for the butterflies, but we'll see. And then we're going to have another extra little bit of a room here, after I mark out where our bedroom's going to be. So a nice, small, cozy little square bedroom. And this bedroom might actually kind of border on the edge of the house and be partly tucked under the ground, which could be handy for letting us sort of dig out some extra interesting underground rooms over here. Or perhaps even building up on top of that ridge there. I don't know yet. Our leopard Dr. Octagonopus is going to go over here. And that's going to stick out probably a little bit from the bedroom. I want it to be a bit of a longer room here. Not by much, just a few blocks enough. And as you'll see, maybe from above on the map, I am kind of filling in the circle. Like it's going to be not a fully square build, even though it's made of square rooms, but that's neither here nor there. And then back here, I have just an extra room. Maybe we'll turn it into some kind of dining room. I haven't decided yet. Let me know what you think this room should be for. We'll have a small 6x5 room over here, and wherever it faces outward, as in not into the underground, we will have windows, so probably just one here. And our hallway is actually going to go straight through to what I think will be the back door. And the back door will be right here. Now, this is going to be, of course, 1 block lower than it currently is, so we will need to have a couple stairs up. And that shouldn't be a problem here. Now, on this side of our hallway, we have another extra room that I haven't decided. It's going to be a bit of a thoroughfare room, because if we're coming in from the back door, it's going to be the way that we get to our storage over here, although I might slip in an extra door to the storage somewhere else. We'll see. So I want to bring this up another block, I think, just to sort of reach farther into the outskirts of our circle here, and we'll go straight across until we meet this sort of edge of the kitchen here. There we go. And I want to punch out a door, probably directly opposite this one. There we go. Even though these are offset, I think having doors that are always opposite is a little samey, but I think it should look fine right here. So we'll have that, and then we'll have this come straight through to our storage room, giving us a room with probably a lot of light coming in from this side. I think we could do a big window here that overlooks, well, whatever's going on out here, whether it's blacksmiths or gardens or bees. I haven't decided yet. And then over this way, we're going to have the rest of our little storage area. I'm going to pop out an extra bit of a room here for doing things with probably dyes. I think I'm going to put our dyeing room up here, maybe just a general like barrel processing room, but that room's going to be over here. It's going to be not quite as wide as the storage room. It's going to come the whole way up to here. And I maybe could have nudged the house that way, like one more block. But that's fine. We will just dig out a little bit more of this. As I said, this circle is just a starting point. It's not meant to be a perfect circle or symmetrical. By the time we're done, I fully expect it to be pretty lumpy. But this will be our storage room right here. And I want to put trunks lining both of these longer walls here. And then in the middle and on the ends, we will have some crates for storing other odds and ends. We'll punch out some doors here for external access. And I'm also thinking that I'm going to want to put the animals closer to the house than we did in the first season, at least the first half of the first season, because I didn't like having to run out into the night to milk the animals or run through swarms of drifters to get to them. I want to just go boop, and we're here in the animals area. Now, they're going to be farther from the living areas of the house, so they shouldn't be as noisy, which is perfect. And we also, that way, shouldn't be scaring the chickens too much. Because as long as we're over here in the kitchen, I think chickens over there where that grapple is should probably just be fine with our presence. Now, as far as our kitchen access to the storage room goes, I think I might have to just sort of backtrack on those plans. The kitchen's going to be kind of, yeah, it'll be central. And unfortunately, we're not going to have access to the storage room from here, but you know what? That's probably not going to matter as much as, well, you know, if we're bringing in stuff from outside, we've killed the animals, we're bringing the meat in. I don't want to have to come all the way through here, around here, into the kitchen, and to the cellar that I plan to have here. So what we could do is, I could either punch out another door here somewhere, like here, which I'm not a fan of, because that then puts us already into where I want trunks to be. But we could do it, and it wouldn't be terrible. The other option is, we could just do our staircase down, have our cellar down here, and I do want to have several rooms downstairs, not just a food cellar. In addition to the food pantry / cellar, we're going to have some brewing, we're going to have some cheese making, we're going to have some other odds and ends that kind of belong downstairs. Oh, and a transmission room, because we need to have a dedicated transmission room for getting our wind power down into our house and out to different machines. We're going to have a quern, we're going to have a pulverizer somewhere, and we are sure as heck going to have a quadruple held hammer setup somewhere outside or near outside for our smithy. So with that in mind, what we could do is, once we've dug out maybe a little hallway down here, we could sort of determine a place that we could send that hallway out to this animal area where we could do our animal slaughtering dirty work and then take our goods straight down into the cellar. And you know what? That might make more sense, because if we've just come in from gently harvesting, I did not use the word slaughter. Nope, I did not use the word slaughter, which you can't spell without laughter. But if we do come in, then our boots are going to be all dirty, and we're probably wearing some kind of, butcher's apron. We don't want to track that through our whole house. We don't want to be leaving trails that we have to clean up later. So maybe it would make sense to leave this in place. We'll have our kitchen be a nice, cozy area, and as an added bonus, it kind of gives us maybe a place in this corner to sneak our axle from the future windmills that I kind of think I want to put on top of the house down into the basement and into a transmission room. So that might actually work out pretty well. But yeah, and then we'll just do like maybe a staircase somewhere, trademark, out here, and we will just have direct access to the cellar from our animal pens. So yeah, I think that's going to about do it for this level of the house, bearing in mind that we do need to dig down one more level. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do most of that right here while we have the time to do it. Alright, and that brings us to bringing down this little tower here. We don't need you anymore. You've served us well, ever so temporarily. And then that brings us to our staircase that I want to sort of get in place here. We're not going to really flesh out the entire cellar, the entire basement area, but I do want to get our access down to a little hallway thing and then straight down to a food cellar. So let's go ahead and we're going to just dig this down here. Down to about here. Let's see. 1, 2, and 3. Yep, we'll have our stairs down to this level. Apparently we have some flint here. And that way we should be able to have a bit of a little overhang here where we can have maybe a bit of an extra storage area on the floor above, like here. Now granted, we can't have a staircase that leads into this block here, but maybe we can like get a really thin piece that won't block us from getting up and down the staircase. And then I'm kind of thinking that we have it come to a landing and then turn. And actually, you know, I'm kind of reconsidering having that turn because we're working in the kitchen. We want to go down and get something. I don't want to have to go down the stairs and then turn and then get to something else. So why don't we just go straight down? We'll come down another block or so. 2 blocks, like I just said. Aren't you listening? And then we'll have our little hallway here, be 2 blocks wide, because no one's dealing with a 1 block wide hallway. They're just not in vogue. And the nice thing is that we're not really beholden to the walls above us. You know, this isn't like Lupine Ridge where we had to consider the structural support of the house, which we didn't really have to, but I was thinking about it. But our hallway will go this way, so north and south. And then our cellar will be right across. So we'll come straight down from our kitchen straight into the cellar. So a little doorway here, like that. And then we can dig out this room as our cellar. And I will just dig out a little bit of it here just to get it started so we know where we're going to have our cellar. There we go. And then we can have like a little underground hallway here that maybe even turns once we get past the cellar. Maybe have like one more room on that side of the cellar. And then we have it turn and lead to a couple other rooms. The hallway here can go out to our animal pens and come up there somewhere. And I think that should work out pretty well. So yeah, we will have our entrance here. We can look down into the living room and say hi to everyone as we come in. All the no one here waiting to greet us. We'll have our library / Lopticoptercops room over here. And then if we come down into the living room, we have access to the kitchen, which also has direct access to this hallway. We can get to our other library / helicopter room over here. Your bedroom up this direction, also right across from the living room. And then our extra rooms that we can sort of do fun things with. Maybe just decoration. Ooh, maybe a chiseling studio. We had one of those in the first season, and I liked that. And then a nice big storage area. Now, I do want to set a couple of ground rules for how we design things and how we build this house. So the first thing is that since we are hobbits, we don't need particularly tall ceilings. Now, I don't want to build 2-block high structures here because that gets a bit claustrophobic and also kind of limits utility. So I'm going to go for primarily, I think, 3 to 4 block tall ceilings. In our storage room, I might actually have the 4 block tall ceilings because 3 block tall trunks are okay, but 4-block tall stacks are much more utilitarian, much more useful. Although we do have a somewhat larger room than we had as a basement in Lupine Ridge, so maybe that won't be a problem. But in most places I'm looking at 3 blocks, maybe 3.5, so we can have like a half-block high ceiling with a sort of bit of a trim. Or I might even go for a 4-block high ceiling with a trim down to 3.5 blocks. In places like this hallway, maybe we can go for a lower ceiling because we're not going to need, tall hallway ceilings. And we might want to have a bit of a tunnel-like feel and then come out into these open, or more open rooms. That could be kind of nice. The second consideration I want to have, or the second rule I want to set, is that anywhere that we have a chimney, and I haven't quite decided yet where we're going to put the kitchen chimney, now that I've sort of moved it back 2 blocks, but wherever we have a chimney, that chimney needs to be at least somewhat functional. I don't want to say it's going to have a full-on opening all the way to the surface, but we need to reserve 1 block space, maybe even a block that we hollow out with a chisel, and have that come up to the surface and actually have a chimney that terminates somewhere, because we kind of maybe sort of forgot to do that at Lupine Ridge. So that's why we're not in that world. We died of carbon monoxide asphyxiation and smoke inhalation. Yeah, it's a real sad story. But yes, so all chimneys must be at least nominally functional. And I am thinking about figuring out a way to get a hold of some of the fancy smoking chimney blocks. Here we go. There is a lit version of this chimney block here that sort of spouts fire particles. That could be fun to have and fun to place. Well, I think they're only available in creative, so we'll have to figure out if we can finagle a way of getting some of those. Maybe doing an alchemist equivalent exchange of, let's make the unlit ones and then dump them into the creative inventory and pull out the smoky ones. Alright, and we're coming back here in the daytime to finish up our little conversation, so we can take a look at this from above a little bit. Let's take a pillar up and take a look down. We don't have any fears of heights, anybody? And that's going to be the floor plan for the first floor of our house. Right there, all nice and covered in snow. And like I said, we will smooth out this terrain. I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll have a very gradual slope, like maybe a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 slope out of here, because what I want to do is I want to have gardens and farms and apiaries and maybe even some fruit trees and stuff that kind of lead us down into the house. I actually recently watched a video about a guy who dug his own house by hand with a pickaxe out in California, and this was like in like the 20s or teens through the 40s, and the entrance is kind of ground level, but then the rest of it is sort of underground, and I'm kind of ended up doing the same vibe here, although I planned this out before I watched that video, which is kind of serendipitous. But anyway, yeah, so I want to sort of gradually slope this out so that whenever we're looking outside from one of our windows, we have a nice view of just gardens the whole way up. And I think the gentle slope will help us be able to see the gardens rather than just seeing like the sides of dirt blocks or whatever else we decide to put here. So yeah, that's going to be the plan for this level of the house and what goes around it. I am thinking about putting our animals over here and probably doing our blacksmithing and stuff out this direction with further gardens out beyond there. Now, that's fairly limiting in terms of size, so what we're going to do is we are going to build this up a little bit, but we're going to do it slowly. What's going to happen is, as we are building out these rooms, and as we finish them, we'll put the ceilings on, but the roof is going to be mostly dirt and sod and grass. And so what we'll do is we'll finish this level of the house, and we'll roof it. We'll put the grass on, we'll get everything nice and pretty, we'll get all the greenery growing, and then we'll come through probably next year, as in year 2, and we will then work on the things that will go on the second floor of the house. Now, the second floor of the house, I think, is going to mostly be greenhouses, which should be interesting because we're going to have this sort of lump-shaped house here. It's going to sort of be a bit of a dome, and so the greenhouses are going to kind of be hopefully a smallish patch in this area of the house here. I don't want them to stick out. And we're going to have to sort of be able to form the rest of the house up around it so it still looks like a bit of a mound, but just have a bit of a glass ceiling. And then probably off to the side here, I'm thinking maybe above this room, offset from the greenhouses and sort of kind of over here is probably where we'll have our windmill, which kind of makes me rethink exactly where the transmission room is going to go. But yes, and then once that second level is done, that will be the entire height of the house, and we'll be able to fully roof it with dirt and sod and everything, and then we'll have a completed house. But I don't want it to be, you know, just a bunch of ugly, disconnected rooms while we're building it, so that's where we're going to do the first floor first, get everything all sodded up or dirted up, and then we'll move on to the second floor with the greenhouses. That is the plan. I do think there might be a chance that next episode is going to require some resource gathering. In fact, I almost guarantee it, because we only have a couple colors of stone, and only a couple blocks of those colors of stone, and I know we have virtually no wood for building with, and I know we need to build with some kinds of wood that we haven't actually touched on before. There are a few types of wood that grow in temperate zones that we have not chopped any trees down of yet, and I want to get to some of that so we can work with some materials from the landscape around us and just make our house nice and pretty. But that is all going to have to be in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed the layout of our home and discussion of where we're going to go this season with our home and our base here. As I mentioned, please let me know what you think of the new audio settings in the comments, and let me know if my voice still sounds okay, or if it's too loud, too soft, too garbled, whatever, let me know. As always, my name has been Kurazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.